Fertilizing can begin within a few weeks of having planted the plant. You put some fertilizer in when you planted it, if you use the rose tone, and you should fertilize. I like to use a time-release fertilizer. This is Dynamite. We also sell Osmocote Plus, which is what I actually use here on the roses in the nursery and what I use in my yard. But any kind of fertilizer can actually work well, but it's important that you know the release rate of the fertilizer. So for a time release, you're going to be fertilizing probably every 3 months or so. With something like a granular fertilizer like the Sunnyland 666, you're going to fertilize once a month. If you like to use liquid fertilizers, which I generally recommend only as a supplement, you're going to be using those every 2 weeks. But keep in mind that roses really do appreciate organic fertilizers like the rose tone or even different types of manure. As far as watering roses go, it's very important in Florida. Roses are not drought tolerant and they are not salt tolerant, so you need to be able to provide a good source of water that's low in salt and do it on a regular basis. Any technique of application can be suitable as long as it's done regularly. One of the main limitations on rose growing in Florida traditionally has been black spot fungus. A lot of that can be overcome by simply choosing varieties that are resistant to black spot, many of which are available now. This is what black spot looks like typically beginning on a rose leaf. It just starts as rather round black spots, and then later on the leaflets will turn yellow and it causes leaf drop. This is typically going to be a problem in Central Florida anytime the nighttime temperatures are in the 70s. So in the summertime, in other words. If you have a variety that's relatively susceptible to black spot, you should be spraying it preventively with a preventive fungicide. Not all fungicides are the same. Some are curatives and some are preventives. Most of the preventive ones contain metals. Copper, for instance, Maneb, which contains manganese, Dithane, which contains manganese and zinc. Sulfur fungicides can also be used to some extent, and they would be considered a more organic solution. Dithane is one I particularly recommend because it's pretty good at holding on in the rain. And typically in black spot season, in the summer in other words, you would apply this every 10 to 14 days. You have to keep in mind that as the plant grows new leaves, which it does constantly, those new leaves have to be protected by the fungicide. These protective fungicides are not very good at curing black spot. They're good at preventing it. For curative problems with diseases on roses, you use what's called a local systemic fungicide. This one is produced by Fertilome. It's called liquid systemic fungicide. Contains a product called Banner Max, which is one of the most effective rose fungicides. And always feel free, when you're having problems with any of your plants, to bring samples into the nursery, and we can identify the problem and tell you specifically what to use, and other methods of going about helping to control the problem. With many types of roses, you'll almost certainly get some black spot, even if you're doing everything right. But remember, the idea is to make the plant survive the summer. It may not be 100% black spot free, but keep the problem down to a level that the plant can survive and still produce flowers. As we said, for fungus problems on roses, we spray preventively and do all we can to prevent them. For insect and mite problems, for the most part, we treat those curatively. We observe the plants as we're outside enjoying them, cutting flowers and so forth, and we look for problems, and when we see a problem, then we do something about it. Spraying the roses on a regular basis with strong chemical pesticides can actually make pest problems worse by eliminating beneficial insects, especially those that prey on mites. To help prevent mites, a non-toxic way is to simply hose the plants down vigorously with a strong stream of water a couple times a week. Okay? If you do notice insect problems, even mite problems, some first steps you can take to control them is to use an insecticidal soap. These are particularly useful because insects and mites don't build up a resistance to soap because it drowns them rather than poisons them. Same thing with spray oils. They can be very effective when used. And the insects do not build up a resistance to them. However, there are some particularly difficult to treat insects that we see sometimes on roses, notably thrips, floral thrips, and chili thrips. The floral thrips are usually a problem in the spring, and they only affect the flowers, not the plant itself. The chili thrips come later in the summer when it's hot, and they can be quite devastating to the plant. If you think you have a problem like chili thrips, we'd like you to bring a sample in a plastic bag so we can advise you what to do. Systemic insecticides are usually the best way to treat chili thrips. Another way of helping with insect control, non-toxic way, is to use sticky traps. These blue ones are pretty effective against thrips, help you keep them under control. Going to be most effective if you use them before you have a serious problem. This would not be a way to save plants that are being killed by chili thrips. It would be a way to help prevent it from starting in the first place. So please keep in mind that while there's a lot of rose products, a lot of rose varieties on the market, different flowers and things, it can be a little bewildering. It's not impossible to do. Just start by making some good sound decisions, and if you run into any problems along the way, feel free to come in and check with us, and we'll be glad to help you out any way we can.